Hey everybody. So this is going to be just a short little video just to introduce minimalism. I'm not even using my sort of normal audio setup, so this is not going to be as well produced here. But I just want to quickly introduce some of the ideas behind the minimalist style. And the first thing that we really should note is that we've sort of felt this all throughout the semester, but the serialism to minimalism shift is one of by far the most dramatic and just sort of mind-blowing jumps where it feels like everything that we were just doing has nothing to do with what we're doing. You know, in this semester, the move from the modes to impressionism has a real connection, but octatonic is pretty different. But then they use octatonic and impression. You know, there's a little bit of a connection. Serialism to minimalism, though, is an extremely stark difference. And the main initial reason why is that the minimalist style and the techniques associated with it developed specifically as a rejection of atonality and a rejection of the serialist style and the way that it had dominated the sort of musical institutions. There's a huge historical division between these two styles, between what we call uptown music and downtown music. Uptown music is the music associated with with uptown Manhattan and the schools that were concentrated there. So the Juilliard School, Manhattan School of Music, and Columbia University in particular. These were places that were by far sort of the keepers of the serious, I was trying to make a pun, but my brain messed up, the serious serialist techniques for writing, whereas the downtown scene sort of centered around New York University, but mostly Greenwich Village and sort of the counterculture area of 1960s New York is where the minimalist style has its roots. And this is much less connected to other classical music, but has a much higher degree of connection to both jazz traditions and also sort of Indian music and even folk music that was happening during that time. So that's a big jump. We're going to look into this now, and this sort of part of the class is going to really focus on sort of what we might even consider like the most pure form of minimalism. This is a style that has had a huge impact on not only classical music in this country and around the world in the last 50, 60 years since it happened, or since it originated, but you will recognize not what we're hearing now, but its descendants in so much of our film music and even in some of our sort of like postmodern art music that we hear, indie music in particular. So connected to this really pure, quote unquote, traditional minimalist style is the music of a couple central composers. And we're going to focus a lot on the music of a guy named Steve Reich, who is still alive. He just recently, in the last couple of years, turned 80. But he's still alive, still making music. We're also going to see some music by Philip Glass, who is another of that same generation of composers. He was actually born in Baltimore, so that's a nice connection there. But Steve Reich in particular, his music really tends to focus on the rhythmic elements. This is something that we haven't worked too much on. We tend to spend a lot of time working on the pitch material, the harmonic material, and that's important here. But in terms of what really defines the minimalist style, it's the way the music transforms and presents and reinterprets the rhythmic elements of the music. And so there's two central techniques that we're going to work on here. And we talk about minimalism being a music that's very process oriented. And so the two central processes that we're going to learn about connected to minimalism are what's called a phasing process and an additive process. So that's our first sort of focus here, is learning about phasing and an additive process. Like I said, we're going to really look at a lot of music by the American composer Steve Reich and then a little bit of Philip Glass. We'll see some more Philip Glass in the next area of this class. But these are really, really central ideas connected to minimalism. Like I said, this is a style that has had huge impacts going forward. And this music, you know, it's going to feel a little bit structured, and it might not relate all the way to stuff that we can see, but there are some really deep underlying connections. So again, we're starting here. We're going to look at two pieces, each of which really represent both the phasing and the additive process, respectively. Again, these are mainly, or these first two pieces are pretty much exclusively rhythmically oriented. They don't have almost any pitch material at all, and that's to give just a very clear representation of what we're starting with here. We'll get, as we get deeper into this, we'll start here in some notes. Remember notes? They're fun. But anyway, I just wanted to sort of give you that context that yes, it should feel like what the crap we've been doing, serialism, and now all of a sudden things are very, very, very different. That's real, and it's because this style is a rejection of serialism. So if you've been unhappy with the atonal stuff we're doing, maybe you want to reject it with the minimalists. So here we go. Let's learn about both the phasing and additive processes that are at the heart of minimalism.